Oh, look at the weather today. We have almost a 20-degree dip because of the wet conditions as we go green in still wet conditions for this second practice of the weekend. It's an option for the teams what tire they want to use, but this is a no-brainer. This is still full wet weather groove tires, yes?
Oh, absolutely, especially for a 45-minute session. They've got time, and these drivers need laps and they need experience across all weather conditions, so they need to get out there today. There's a lot of setup changes that teams can make to actually also improve their wet handling car, and I think typically in North America people maybe don't put quite as much emphasis on that as they do in Europe. So I think for everyone just getting out there today, experiencing this track, especially for rookies, they might be learning the track in the dry. You've obviously now turned it 180, it's completely wet, still some spray. It might be a little while before the track actually dries. Also, the track temperature was 50 degrees down, so it might be a second. So I would definitely be out there right now if I could. Do right now, honestly. I could see them leaving it, and then you're seeing I would probably be trying to look after my wet tires maybe a little bit at this point of the session instead of maybe getting quite that sideways there.
As they're getting after it here a little bit early in this session, Josh Pearson wants to get around James Rowe. You don't get a lot of practice time in the wet, so take advantage of that because this could come into play for a race later in the season.
It sure could, and I mean, you're actually seeing them getting racy now. Where I just said you don't want to, maybe push too hard too early, it's because there's 40 minutes left. However, in the race, if someone's slower than you, you need to find a way to get by them. So they are going to use this opportunity probably to try and make a pass, try and make a move, and just see exactly where they can get away with overtakes, where they can't get away with some overtakes as well.
This will give us a good idea of what the driver is dealing with the Franks Red Hot on board with Ricardo Escoto. Do you feel like these looks, Jack, are accurate for the driver visibility, better or worse in real life?
It looks fine here. I think one thing people need to consider is when you've got your visor on, you don't really have a lot of time to actually clean your visor. So this is probably a little bit more representative, seeing that spray coming down the front straight there. And you're just seeing how slippy it is, because you would still look at it and say, not really pushing yet, but sliding around a lot. Also just made a front bar adjustment just to try and see if he can get the front of that car, to behave a little bit probably more like he's hoping. But I mean, the guys are pushing out there for sure. Have to be really careful on the curbs, on the paint, because even though the track's slippy, those areas will be even worse.
Notice Evergore's Papasavas making his debut, who had his first day cut short yesterday, finding the barriers with not too much damage, and he's second quick in the early going. Tommy Smith taking another ride and coming back on. Josh Pearson does a nice job of avoiding him.
I feel like he's been off at turn one a couple times. Even yesterday, I feel like he was, maybe that's his problem corner right now. Not sure.
He did find some pace yesterday. At one point, he was P2 fairly late in the session. Smith ended 7th yesterday.
But also, in all fairness to the drivers, that's what practice is for. And one thing that everyone needs to consider, this track, because it's not still raining, is evolving every lap. So they really need to be able to keep exploring. You've got to shake those things off and just get on with it again.
Let's talk. Tommy Smith just went to 4th quick, but before he did that, he provided some excitement again. Let's look. And the winner of the opening race, who's been quickest in most every session, was the last to come out, and it took him 2 laps to go to the top of the board. That's Dennis Hauger of Andretti Global, who has put good second on the field, a half second or so on his teammate Salvador De Alba. In fact, it's Andretti 1, 2, 3, James Rowe 3rd, Niels Colin 4th quick for Ganassi, and Kyle Collette top 5 with HMD. Kevin ahead of the IndyCar race on Fox as De Alba goes for an excursion near the pit in. It's back on with no real harm.
I think Dennis might have heard you, because he actually did put a second between him and the field on that last lap that he did.
Now he is a full second, okay. There's Nolan Aller in the 11 car for HMD, sliding wide into the gravel. Nearing the midpoint of practice 2 in INDY NXT at Barber Motorsports Park. Tommy Smith has been exploring the limits on and off track today, and now he's in the pit lane, and the HMD crew is doing some work.
Yeah, it must be some kind of cooling issue, Kevin. I'm not sure exactly what it is they're working, what their issue is. Maybe Georgia could help us out and go and find out for us exactly. But one thing I think is really interesting, we're talking about tires, the conditions of the track. Normally when it's in this greasy conditions, you see the tire kind of torn up. There was still quite a lot of rubber on that Firestone wet tire, which I thought was pretty interesting to see.
Down to pit lane. What's going on, Georgia?
Well, Kevin, it might come a little bit earlier than we thought. Niels Coolin in the 10 car. They are going with those slick tires, so we'll see what he can do. They're the first to do it. Maybe it'll set the tone. Maybe they'll go back to it. We'll just have to see.
You called it, Jack.
I probably wasn't expecting it to happen quite that quickly. I thought this was going to be an evolving conversation for 5 minutes.
So everyone will be very closely watching to see how Niels Coolin does on the slicks with Firestone as he goes out in just a moment here at Barber. Here's quick time so far in the wet but drying conditions in practice 2 for Indy NXT by Firestone at Barber Motorsports Park. Kyle Collette just got there. Max Taylor has just jumped up to second quick in his debut weekend. 17-year-old from New Jersey. Second quick, then a pair of Andretti drivers, and we'll be watching what Dennis Hauger does, especially after an air pressure adjustment, and we're going to keep an eye on Niels Coolin. We'll be watching for that number 10 red and white and black Chip Ganassi racing car. We think the first to go on the Firestone slicks, the dry weather tires in these mixed conditions. How will he go?
That dry line is just starting to appear, Kevin. It's coming. It's coming.
All right, let's see what Niels Coolin can do on Firestone slicks in the 10 Chip Ganassi racing car. Miles Rowe right behind him. Coolin was quick in the wet.
The key right now, Kevin, for this, you just got to get laps. You need the ability to bring the tires up to temperature, start to lean on them. They will get quicker and quicker and quicker, especially in these conditions. So, okay, maybe the first 3 laps are not going to be as good, but when that grip starts to come, they're going to go significantly quicker. So you're seeing a lot of the cars are sliding around, maybe the wets are done, but typically in the race, one of the first people to get to slicks and they just start that heat cycle process pays a huge dividend. But you've got to weather the storm right now. You've got to just keep it on the island and just keep trying to build temperature the best you can.
James Rowe goes better to the top, a tenth better than Kyle Collette. And you see Coolin still trying to explore the grip. Miles Rowe on the wet weather Firestones blew past him and took off. So Coolin is still working his way up to speed. That lap was an out lap, so no time there. So this next one is the first chance we'll get. So we just saw Escoto, and this is him now back on track. So that was moments ago with the tire change. Jack, let's watch him on the slicks. Dry line through here. Jack, you got to have quick hands in the wet.
You sure do. And honestly, in these conditions, this is probably where you're going to see the drivers.
Whoa! Okay.
Most active.
Okay, then.
Hopefully he's not beached.
Going to be tough to get out of there in the wet. He is got some downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Can you get it going?
So when you go out on the slicks, trying to just get tire temp is so difficult. That one of the reasons you're seeing the hands be so frequent and active is really just to try and get tire temperature. See exactly what happens from another angle. So basically the front tires aren't working yet, so you go in, you keep adding lock, and then at some point the front's grip a little bit, the rears come around, and then it's not a great feeling in the car when you have a spin that slow. To be honest, it doesn't feel good. However, it's just, you know, it's just one of them things. It's just trying to get tire temp in these conditions is very difficult.
Probably not a great feeling for Niels Coolin, who is right behind him as well. Had a little bit of a gap and no issue. Colin was the first that we saw. Okay, here's as the times start to drop. Colin has done a 120. Kyle Collette also on slicks dropped it to 117.9. So now, if you can hang on to it, it is definitely about 5-6 seconds quicker. Better. James Rowe has gone around in the Top Con car, gets himself righted. One of the Andretti Global drivers. By the way, speaking of Andretti, they support Dan Weldon's sons as we watch one more time. Rowe going around. So Dan's oldest son, Sebastian Weldon, who finished third in the USF Juniors Championship last year in America, raced in Europe, I believe, for the first time in the Italian F4 Series today and won. And his younger brother, Oliver, just finished second this morning in USF Juniors and had a podium in one of the 2 races yesterday. So congrats to Susie, and the boys are supported by Dan Tauris and Gamebridge in Group 1001, and we may see them in IndyCar at some point, but we also might see them with Cadillac F1 in a few years.
I think the future is bright for both of them. It's obviously an unbelievably talented family. Congratulations to them both. Hope they just keep that development going, and would love to see them either in the IndyCar Series or in Formula One. But either way, successful long careers is what we're hoping for.
Well, there's a good look at the 99 Able Motorsports Force IndyCar, part of the Race for a Quality and Change program. Miles in year 2 at this level. Showed some pace last year, had some results. Second half of the season was pretty disappointed, so I know he's ready to go in year 2. What's happened to Ricardo Escoto?
Getting a little crossed up on the exit of 5 there.
Hangs on to it. Put your foot on the throttle and drive through it.
Go straight through it. Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't hear any throttle modulation there to try and limit that wheel spin. He just committed to it, which, you know, sometimes in quality you got to. In this moment, I'm not totally sure, but I think, Kevin, you nailed it a second ago. I think this is going to be whoever takes the checkered flag last. This track's just getting quicker and quicker. They're actually not even that far off of now what they did yesterday, maybe a second, and I bet their lap times are going to continue to improve.
Drivers will cross that line.
Wow. Yeah, and you saw Collette. I mean, he only missed it by maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and that could have had a huge consequence. Let's see where Dennis finishes.
Let's watch him to the line. There it is right there. What does Hauger do? He will go to the top.
P1, good lap there at the end. Great job in a messy session. That was good. Thank you.
But also, I wonder where Collette might have been if he got to finish his lap after. That's what makes this so exciting and so interesting. And for the drivers, you cannot for a moment stop pushing or think that you're good.
So on the left side, you see how this session finished. Miles Rowe works his way up into the top 5. Callum Hedge, Ricardo Escoto, Jordan Missick, Max Taylor, Sebastian Murray, the top 10. Good day for Evergore's Papasavas. 11th quick, then Rowe, Pearson, Aaron, Colin, who's the first to go to slicks, Smith, Skeets, Aller, Miller, and Deegan rounding out the field today for the last practice. There's qualifying coming up. They'll split them into 2 groups, and Dennis Hauger will get to choose where the odds go. So Hauger, De Alba, Rowe, etc. will be in a group. They always choose group 2, and so the evens will go in group 1 of qualifying coming up at 1:30 Eastern.